Hi everybody, I'm Holly and welcome back to my Southern California Zone 9B garden. Today I need to transplant some tomatoes. So basically I started a bunch of tomatoes from seed, I think about in the beginning of March, and now they are ready either to go out into the garden or to be potted up into larger pots, depending on which ones are which. So I'm going to go and take you along for the ride today as I transplant my tomatoes. So I'm going to be transplanting out these 4 tomatoes into this bed. I could actually put 6 here, but I'm going to end up putting pumpkins at the end. And these 4 are all indeterminate varieties. So what that means is they just keep growing until frost. And so technically they could get to be 8, 10, 12 feet tall. So we're going to need to put cages around them. And I have 2 varieties. I have Costaluto Genovese. That's an heirloom indeterminate, and then I have Early Girl, which is a really popular hybrid indeterminate. And so they're getting pretty big, and they're in kind of small pots, so it's time to put them out. So the easiest way to do that, and I love these Epic 4-cell trays. They're from Epic Gardening because they have holes where you can stick your finger and kind of poke the plant out. And so that's what I do is I stick my finger in, pop it up. Now people recommend... There we go. People recommend not to grab plants by the stem when you pull them out, but these are pretty tough plants, and I only had to pull a little bit. And you can see they're not totally root bound yet, but I'd rather get them out while I have time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig a hole here. And one thing about tomatoes is you can actually plant them more deeply than you would a lot of other plants in the garden. So typically when you're transplanting, you want the plant to be at the same level in terms of the soil level as it was in its pot. But tomatoes can actually grow roots along their stems, so you can plant them deeper than you would other plants. So I'm going to plant this one fairly deep just to form some more roots on its stem. I'm just kind of tucking the soil around. And after I finish putting all these in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to water them in well because they're pretty dry. And then later I'll put some cages up around them. I can show you that. And it's going to be close to 90 today, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll put some shade cloth up, or maybe I'll just see how they're doing and not worry about it. So here you can see those tomatoes after they've been planted, and there's kind of a lot of wire going on, so it's hard to see what's happening. But what I did is I put wire cages that I made out of 5-foot welded wire fencing over each tomato, and then I pounded in some wooden stakes and tied the cages to the wooden stakes. We don't get a ton of wind here, but occasionally we do, and I don't want the cages blowing over. You can see the little tomatoes in there. They're perking up, and I watered them in really well, and I replaced the mulch, and as you can see, I labeled them as well. Now, one thing that occurred to me that some of you might wonder is that I did not put any fertilizer down when I planted these tomatoes, and I actually pretty much never use fertilizer. I don't really need to. So if you really build your soil health, and I've worked on that for several years, so I've done that through using compost and worm castings, doing in-bed worm composting, using cover crops. If you do all those things and amending, as needed, if you do all those things, then you don't really need to use fertilizer. So I rarely ever do. So these are some tomatoes that actually I'm not ready to transplant them out into the garden yet. So the bed where they need to go is still filled with leeks that haven't quite matured yet. And so these guys are getting pretty big, and so what that means is that I need to pot them up, or sometimes people call it pot them on. So basically put them in a bigger pot until they're ready to go out. So that's what I'm going to be doing with these today. I have a couple of varieties. I have Marglobe, which is an heirloom or determinate type. So it's going to reach a certain limit. It's going to produce all of its tomatoes kind of around the same time and then be done. And then I have Celebrity, which is an heirloom, or no, it's a hybrid actually. And depending on what you read, some people say that it's determinate and other people say that it's a semi-determinate. So we're going to see what happens with that one. I haven't grown either of these before, so I'm really excited to see what they will do. So basically, when you're going to pot something up, you want to be, now tomatoes actually, I was going to say you want to be careful with the roots and such, but tomatoes can handle a little bit of abuse. They're tougher than some other plants. But, you know, usually what I do is I'll pinch the stem between my fingers and then turn it upside down and then just kind of give the pot a squeeze and a little bit of shake. We'll see what the roots are like here. Oh yeah. So the roots look pretty good. It's not too root bound. They're not circling around the bottom of the pot or anything like that. But, you know, they are getting to be, you know, they're getting there. So I think this is a good time to transplant them. And you see I'm teasing them out a little bit. Tomatoes can handle this. This one doesn't really need it. It's not too bad. So what I do is I take a pot. I already have some potting mix in the bottom there. And I just pop this in. I'll get my potting mix and then just fill around. And as I've mentioned, I think probably before, tomatoes can be planted pretty deep. They're going to grow, this one will grow roots along its stem. So that might actually help its root development a little bit. So that's why I'm going to bury it deep. That looks pretty good. I'm firming the soil a little bit. You don't have to firm it too much. And then after I finish repotting all these, I'll give them a good watering, and that'll also help settle the soil around their roots, help get rid of any air pockets. And then, since it's going to be a hot day, I will probably put these in the shade on the patio, and they should be ready to go back out in the sun probably by tomorrow. So here we have it. I finished potting up all of those tomatoes. And you can also see I potted up a few basil as well because their spot in the garden is not quite ready for them yet. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, or let me know what you've been transplanting for those of you who are at this stage yet or already. And for those of you who are in colder regions and you're still just getting things started, let me know what you're most looking forward to potting up once the time comes. So in the meantime, if you like the content I'm creating, please subscribe to the channel and also hit that like button. And I'll see you guys next time.